want you to go through that 5-step structure and really work on it. But I also want to share with you some examples, just so you know if this is a little overwhelming, a little hard, that you're not alone. It's hard for me too. This was an example here of my first speech outline. If you're looking in your workbook, this is not in there. This is confidential. I'm just kidding. But one of my very first speech outlines for what we call our signature speech, kind of my regular speech that I really like to give. So you can see back then, I was still putting together my intro disclaimers we'll talk about a little later. So I had a lot of stuff in here, but by and large I had the core components of it in there. This is as I went later. This is a much cleaner example where I have a clear opening. All I do is tell my story. Number 2 and 3 is really your topic intro. That number 3 is really where I'm defining the problem and my solution. 3, 4, and 5 are the content, right? Excuse me, 4, 5, and 6 are the content. And then number 7 is my takeaway, which was always a challenge. And then number 8 was a very simple and succinct close. Okay, so that's just another example there. For some of you that like to nerd out on this stuff, you want to get real techie on it. When I did some corporate training and I'd be doing long sessions, I like to make sure that I was mixing things up enough. So what I would do is do my outline and then go back and look and say, okay, how often am I interacting the audience? So the yellow would be a story. The green would be an actual activity that I'd have them do. The blue would be quotes. So I just wanted to make sure that I was mixing things up a little bit. So again, just showing you different examples of how you can use an outline. And I want to make sure you use them. I want to take you through now an actual live example. This is from a couple years ago. Kevin Bracey, my mentor, I was invited back to speak on his stage. His stage is actually where I had my first big break. So this was a really important night for me. I was very nervous. And here's kind of the event info. And I want to just talk you through over a couple minutes here of the process I went through. And I want you to keep this in mind, okay? This is not all that long ago. And I teach this stuff. And I do it for a living. And yet you'll see even for me how challenging it was. So here's the information, if you will. Let's just use this as my meeting information sheet, okay? Just to give you some basics about the event. So there's 700 people, big event. Wide demographic, literally from 8 to 80 were in that room. 8 years old to 80 years old. The theme was motivational. Motivational theme, I don't recall the exact, I think it was on the brink of greatness, I believe was the theme that night. I was the opening speaker of 4 speakers. I was the opening speaker, but you also need to know that I was following an opening musical act, which was super high energy. And the number 5 is I had 17 to 20 minutes. And we'll talk later about time, but you don't go long, especially on your mentor stage. So those are kind of the variables that I had to work with. Now, I want to share with you, this was my first outline on this. So you can see up there, 2011. See, I'm not hiding anything from you guys, okay? So my first one, this is my first outline. Now, I don't know what jumps out at you, but the first thing I went back when I looked at this, I thought, in 17 minutes? I'm not even sure I could read this in 17 minutes. I had way too much stuff. In fact, if you look over on the right-hand side in the margins, those were things that I was also trying to fit in. I just couldn't figure out where to put them. Too much stuff. Right? So one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is going back and cutting stuff out. Cutting stuff out. My wife is a screenwriter. The life of a screenwriter is not writing the screenplay. It's cutting stuff out of it. It's brutal. It's brutal. And we don't like it because we want all this stuff to get in there. I had such great stories and content. I was so excited. But I had to pick. Otherwise, I wouldn't make the impact. So here's the next version. I trimmed it down. I went back and looked and I thought, man, I'm still too long. Now, if you're really playing along at home, on the left-hand side, the circled numbers are the time. Those are the minutes that I felt I had for each one of those sections. So for my opening and topic intro, I had 5 minutes. My content, I had 7 minutes total to get through my content. And then 7 minutes for my takeaway and my close. So I want you to think about that. if you've got a 15-minute talk, you really only probably have 5 to 7 minutes for your content. That's why we can only do 3 things at the most, right? So I had to trim it again, and then you go on to the next one. Now I'm getting so frustrated, I'm back to the drawing board. For me, the drawing board is a yellow pad, so now I'm really paring down my outline to the basics, okay? Literally a copy of my sheet. I had to pare it down again. Now as you look in the middle, I'm starting to play around with different types of content because I started thinking about the audience, thinking, there's a lot of kids there. I'm not sure they're going to dig, believe, identify, go big. So I started changing it to attitude, activity, accountability. Same theme, same goal, but just a different word to get across the same concept. So you start playing with this stuff, right? I'm not going to lie, I was getting a little crazy. I was overthinking this a little bit. Now I'm starting to break through and get my formula. This is what my final draft looked like. So you can see each one of those 5 sections from the 5-step structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I got it down to about 15 minutes, and I went through the talk, and it worked out great. So what I want you to do is either pause the video or go back and start thinking about in each one of these sections, what can I put in here that could help me build my opening, my topic intro? What content do I want to focus on? The takeaway, what's an action step that I can do or something I could give them to help them use what I just taught them? And then the close, what's a powerful way that I could do it to get out of there?